Welcome to the Spiritual Forum, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. It's finally a beautiful day in Wisconsin. We're coming out of winter and it's 75, and I'm so delighted. I hope wherever you're listening, you're also having beautiful weather or whatever weather you're having. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I just want to send a shout out to all my listeners, people who've been with me for all these years. I really appreciate it. I'm always interested in your feedback. I do have a feedback survey. If you're interested in doing that, you can just go to the spiritualforum.org and click on the survey and give me some feedback on what topics you want to hear. You may have some suggestions for guests, and I just am interested in learning more about you. I appreciate everybody. And if you appreciate what I'm doing, what would really be helpful is all podcasters say this, but a positive rating and review, downloads, all that stuff. It matters in the worlds of podcasts. And of course, this is at least at this point, I don't have advertisements on this podcast. So it's a very fluid production and conversation. And so I do rely on donations and appreciate everyone who's donated and those who will in the future. Any amount helps a whole lot. So thank you so much. Today, I want to introduce my guest. Through years of suffering with serious heart and lung symptoms and the confusion and frustration of awaiting a diagnosis, Lois Bouchard sat with spirit and listened. She was eventually diagnosed with an extremely rare and fatal autoimmune disease that few doctors are able to treat. In 2020, she suffered a stroke, and in 2022, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Lois documented her 3-year journey of meditation and prayer in her book, Dear Lord, I Am Listening. Her hope is that the message in her book will provide people of all walks of life, convictions, and generations with inspiration, faith, hope, and love. And what I love about Lois is she's living the spiritual life. And what she's going to talk to us today is about her 3-year journey where she sat and listened. And this is something that is very, very inspiring to me. And I can tell my own stories later, but we're going to hear from Lois first. Welcome, Lois.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you. I know you have a very clear message. And I mean, anybody who sits for three years in prayer and meditation receives the blessings of spirit. And I know you have a really clear message, and I know you want to expound on that. But if you could share with people just succinctly, what would be your message in kind of in a nutshell before we go into your story?
I think my message would be to always look for the Lord, and that to never give up your hope and love and faith in Him. That has gotten me through basically my whole life, not just these past 3 years, but decades prior to when I've had to face challenging times. I've always turned to the Lord through prayer and meditation, and He has always helped me. He has never failed me. And through the past 5 years, I should say, when my symptoms started, I did so again. And only this time, I actually started to journal. When I turned 67, my birthday, I bought a journal and I started to write in it. And I started to write and record my prayers and meditations. And 3 years later to the day when I turned 70, I received my manuscript back from my publisher of my book that I had compiled of all the messages that I received from Spirit. So the messages that I have for everyone is to never feel like you are alone, no matter what you're facing in life, no matter what challenges you're having to deal with in life. Whether they be physical or emotional, they don't have to affect, your physical body. It's personal issues that you are never alone in these challenges. Even as I talked about in my book, going through COVID and being afraid of this deadly virus that was affecting everyone and not knowing where it was coming from or who was going to get hit by it or who would be suffering, or unfortunately those who have passed away. It was a very challenging time for all of us. And this was mentioned in my book, and the messages were very clear and quite beautiful. And it all comes down basically to faith, hope, and love. And that is how I live my life. And that's how I try to look at my future, regardless of what I'm being told by doctors, or what I'm dealing with, or what I have to face, challenges that I face. It always goes back to my faith. And it's a beautiful feeling. It's a very peaceful and comforting situation that I'm in, even though, my prognosis does not look good. I have no anxiety.
Mm.
And that really helps me every single day. And I'm very thankful for that.
Well, I have to say that the idea, the truth that we are not alone is so important for everyone, because people were during the COVID stuff, and people were like, locked down, and so many people were alone. Some people were in situations where they were with abusive family members, and that would have been horrible. And then there are those that were alone. And sometimes in our lives, I think every one of us doesn't escape this feeling that we're alone, but we're really not.
Absolutely.
We're never alone. We are never ever alone. That whatever name, I think I shared with you that my podcast has a fairly general audience, interfaith, many faiths, and many names and all for God. And my name for God is God, but some people name God mystery, or the Great Spirit, or whatever it is, that spirit is always with us no matter what. And it sounds like that is the strength that you've had through your years. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, like about what you've gone through?
Sure. I Well, I'm retired now, but I've actually have worked, my entire life. I actually had 3 careers in my lifetime. And my first career started out working in IBM, as uh, a systems analyst. And then I did quite a bit of traveling. And then I decided to work in the health field, and became a healthcare administrator for neonatal and cancer research directors. And finally, when I turned 50, I decided to follow my passion, which was to become a gemologist and a diamond broker. And I worked basically I became a graduate gemologist as well, and started my own business as an appraiser of fine gemstones and fine jewelry. So that was a wonderful career. It was very exciting, and it was very enjoyable. And I met a lot of interesting people. And of course, I saw a lot of beautiful, beautiful jewelry and beautiful pieces. Um, and I started to notice that when I was appraising estate jewelry, which meant that it was worn prior by mostly by people who had passed on. And when I was holding the jewelry and performing the evaluation of it, I started, through clairaudience, to hear, you know, the spirit of loved ones coming through. And it was the energy that I was picking up on those pieces of jewelry. And it was always for the person who was sitting in my office, who was the loved one. And it was messages given for those people. And of course, as an appraiser, I'm I wasn't advertising myself to be a medium. So I was, taking notes and Later on, during or after the appraisal was done, I would sometimes explain to the sitter how I was able to pick up on their loved one, and that we're all energy, and their energy was part of that piece of jewelry, and whatever messages were coming through. And I realized that it was all about love. It was beautiful messages that they were passing on, mostly how much they loved their loved ones and how proud they were of them. And it was just a wonderful feeling for them, for the sitter, to hear that. And I was very grateful that I was able to communicate that to them. So that was very exciting for me. And of course, working as an appraiser was just as exciting and very gratifying. But then I started to not feel so well, and I started to have heart arrhythmias, which were very intense and very painful. And I would go to doctors, and they would not understand what was happening to me. I would have MRI done and tests done. And in my book, I actually discuss, one of the messages was about the inconsistencies of tests in message number 10. And it talked about how basically how doctors cannot, as I prayed about trying to understand my condition, I started getting the answers not from doctors or physicians, but from who I call the Lord. And it was through prayers and his answers and messages to me that I started to understand what I was going through, what my symptoms were, what was causing my symptoms, and how the body was dealing with all of this, and how I had to see things not from so much from the point of science, but from how the messages were telling me how to see them. And one way was talking about the heart. And though I was having trouble with my heart physically, with these arrhythmias and the pain and the discomfort that comes with it, I was realizing from my messages that the heart harbors all feelings of love and heartbreak throughout all the years of your life. And that these feelings cause physical pain. And it's not just the right side of the heart or the left side of the heart that's affected. It is all the properties of the heart that are affected. So I started to realize that it is not just a physical problem with the structure of my heart or the function of my heart. It has to do with love. So it comes to what kind of love we've had in our life, what kind of heartbreak we've had in our life, because the heart is where it harbors all those emotions. And that down the road, it starts to manifest. And so that was a learning a lesson that I had learned through my messages. And it was very eye-opening to me. Another lesson I learned was that even though I had MRIs done and CAT scans done, a lot of these tests that were being conducted to find out what was causing these issues were not consistent with each other. So one test would say one thing, another test would say something else, or one be positive, one be negative of the same heart structure or so forth. And I started to think, for some reason, this must be my fault. I started doubting myself until I prayed about it and meditated about it. And my message was that this is not, don't blame yourself for the inconsistencies of mankind, because even with their tests, which they think are advanced, they cannot see the intricate system and the delicate functions of the human body that I have created. And no matter how they try, they can only see through a small window. They cannot see the whole function of the body and all of these intricate systems that were my creation. So it made me feel better that I was in the hands of a higher power who knew so much more than the physician who is rated as a professor, or from a Ivy League school, or a teaching hospital, state of the art technology. No matter what, it's never going to be the same understanding or the same knowledge that the Lord has for me. And so that started to put me at ease and started to make me understand and realize that as much as I should believe doctors, which I do, and they all are well-meaning and they all want to help us, which is absolutely fundamentally the truth, that I was able to connect with a higher power who really knew my system, my body, my heart from the time of creation, and that my heart is in his hands. And he has control of my heart and my life. And that has put me into, again, such a place of comfort and peace that I no longer worry. I'm no longer concerned. I don't have that frustration of what's wrong with me all the time, and not knowing what's wrong. I am just totally I accept what's happening, and I accept that the Lord has it under control.
Okay, thank you very much for that story. It's very inspiring, and I love the conclusions you're coming to. I've got a few places I want to go with this. First, I do want to acknowledge that we know, I think, very little about the miraculous workings of the body. I mean, it is so amazing. And I think whatever it is that our sciences think they know about it, it's just a tiny fraction, and it may even be wrong in lots of cases. It's like it is just an amazing creation.
That
And
is true.
I
Yeah.
don't think we'll ever, even with artificial intelligence and everything that science is trying to do, we will never be able to master the masterpiece that our body is. And I think it's just so wonderful that you had this connection where you were able to discern that that is the truth, and that what is going on is something that the doctor doesn't matter what your credentials are. It's like no one's beyond God, no one's beyond spirit,
That's
no one's
right.
beyond the divine.
That's
That's
right.
that's definitely true. I'm very interested in knowing about how you hear your messages, because I think, and I've said this on a few other podcasts, I think discernment, to discern the voice of God, of the divine, of whatever name that is, Holy Spirit, um, from your own voice, your own ego, your own inner chatter.
Yes.
I'm really interested in how you discern and what it is that you're hearing. Are you actually hearing a voice? Are you having a sensation? Are words coming to you? Could you describe some of that?
Um, okay, so I would start out by saying that I always start with prayer. And that prayer can, I was born and raised Catholic, and as a Catholic, we had Catholic prayers, but which we were taught to say. It's almost like just repeating the same words over and over again. But what I started to do was to have a conversation, to ask the Lord, and you'll see in my book that my prayer is really a question. It's a conversation saying, "Dear Lord, I'm so worried about COVID, or, what, or as we come to the end of this year, what will my new year look like?" So it's basically a very simple, uncomplicated question. It gets complicated sometimes when I talk about my illness, but then I would just go into a quiet meditation, quiet my mind. That's the key. You have to quiet your mind from all mindless noise, go in a quiet place, sit quietly alone, turn off all the television and outside noise. Try to do the same with your mind. And I go to a place and I just pray quietly, say, dear Lord, I love you. Um, and just repeating that, how much I love him. And I pray that you will honor my questions today and answer, what my concerns are. But basically, it's a repetition of love. And then I would just sit quietly, and I would always, and there are times when I would actually have to be like, for some reason, my head does move around. It's almost like I'm picking up a certain bandwidth of a radio station. And my head seems to move back and forth from side to side. And then within a few seconds or minutes, I would hear, be brave, my child, and know that I am with you. So that would be the beginning of my message. And it always starts with, be brave, my child, know that I am near. Be brave, my child, know that I am with you. And then would come the message. So that would be the starting point, if you will, of my messages, and knowing that this is where I need to really listen. So listening, for a lot of people will say, well, I do pray a lot, but I can't hear anything. And I don't get these messages. How is it that you do that? And I can't do that. And I always say that you just have to really quiet your mind and believe that the Lord will speak with you, and just really listen and relax. Don't try so hard and don't force it, but just try to relax and just find that beautiful communion with the Lord. And again, for me, it's always about love. Like, I could take a walk down the street and look at, nature and the beautiful trees and beautiful flowers. And I know that he's with me. I see his beauty in all things. And I look for his beauty in all things. And I tell him, how much I love him. Dear Lord, I love you so much, and I talk to him. And then I can actually hear him speak to me. But again, I feel I have a gift of clairaudience, which means I have the gift of hearing. And I think that's an important part of this. Just as I hear it with jewelry, or if I hold something that belongs to a person who has passed, and I can pick up a pair of their glasses and right away I could see a nurse, So I do have some type of gift where I can, psychometry, I guess it's called, clairaudience, clairvoyance. I do get images at times. So one time, when I was praying, and I know the country was going through a very difficult time with division, a lot of angst, a lot of animosity, and it was really hurting me, and I was having a difficult time with it. And, and I was praying one day and I saw these white wings, and the very, very tall white wings that were taller than me. And I've never seen that before. And I asked in my prayer, is why I think I'm seeing these white wings that are really quite tall in stature. And could this be an angel? And why am I seeing this now? And, the message came later and said, don't fear my army of guides and light that I bring to you, to bring you joy and hope and to comfort you. And that was a time, where I was really struggling with what was happening, in our country, and seeing what was going on. And it just put me I wanted to be in a state of grace, and it was hard for me to get there. So that's when I feel like I saw that angel, and he was telling me, your angels surround us in many messages. He tells me that my angels go with you when I'm taking a journey or I have to travel somewhere. And, I suffer from very low heartbeats. And I do go into arrhythmias at times. So I get concerned about traveling. And he says, my angels are with you to give you peace. And when I know that or hear that, I say, I'm taking this trip and I'm going to be fine. There's nothing to fear. My angels are with me. So why would I worry about anything? And it's just a beautiful, reassuring message and a beautiful, reassuring feeling that really helps me on a daily basis.
And I think it's important for all of us to get that message because, at least my understanding, is that God, the source of everything that animates all of creation, everything, invisible, invisible, is so vast beyond anything that any of us can completely comprehend. So, this message that you are protected and that you have angels, it's for all of us. I mean, it's
Oh,
like,
yes.
you know, you're, you're a beautiful woman, and I'm sure you're special, but you're not the only one
Oh,
who's being
absolutely. Well, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying that it's not just for me,
right.
as all the messages that are written in this book are not just for me. They are written for everyone. And I'm only talking about this angel because that's what I saw that one day. But angels surround all of us. And, my daughter, gave birth recently, and she was so worried, as all young moms are, about the birthing process. And I prayed for her, and I said to her, I got that your angels are going to be with you. So you don't have to worry or be scared. Your angels are going to be there. And when I talk to other friends I know, who say, like, I had an accident, but I could have gotten really hurt, but I only had a scratch on me. And I said, your angels are protecting you. So we all have angels. And yes, I do believe they protect us, they travel with us, they're there during our difficult times and most likely not difficult times. So it's for everyone, absolutely everyone.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, this book, one of one of the messages I received when I started to journal was that I had to write a book, and I never intended to write a book. I never thought about writing a book. Um, And it kept coming up over and over, this message that I was to compile my messages and put them in a book for all to read. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've never done this. I don't know how to do it. I was overwhelmed. And I did what I was told because this task was put before me more than one time. And I knew I was not to ignore it because what was coming to me was so beautiful that I wanted it to share with everyone. And I'm so grateful that you asked me to be on your podcast because I'm not trying to get rich. I have no intention to get rich, but my intention is to spread this word. And I'm so thankful that you're allowing me this venue to do that. So um, I'm trying to get it out there to as many people because I know for a fact that it will help so many people because it touches on, um, as I said, faith, hope, and love, but in ways about grieving, about losing a spouse, about your health situations. It talks about your frustrations and your struggles of everyday life for people who have it much worse than I do, and how the Lord tells us that that will be all left behind, and it will just acquiesce within its own demise, and that he has a place for us when this is all said and done, that is holds so much beauty and love for us, and everything that is old will become new again. So these messages are over and over in this book, and it's all about having your faith and hope and love again, and how much love he has for us every single day. And no matter how much we struggle, we look for him, and that love that he has for us will get us through. And the messages are just beautiful, and I know they will help every single one of us.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, you kept coming up my own meditations. You approached me a while ago. I get approached by lots of people to be on the podcast. I have certain publishers who are constantly approaching me with different books that are coming out and different people, and some of them move me right away, and others I kind of put off for a while, and I'm not sure. Anyway, to be honest with you, Carol, wasn't sure about having you on the podcast, but you kept coming up in
Wow.
my meditation. I had to follow my orders.
See that?
I
So it
had to
was
follow.
meant to happen.
I had to follow my orders, and then I had a cancellation yesterday, and it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is Lois's time.
Well, I
So
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, so I follow my guidance too. I've learned that my guidance, I could ignore it for a while, but it's going to keep coming up. And so I've done some very bold and crazy things following my guidance, and I've always been grateful. I do have a couple of things I want to ask you, because not everybody has the faith you have. Not everybody has the relationship with God, Spirit, the divine that you have. And I know there'd be some people saying, okay, there's angels around us and they're protecting us, but not everybody's safe from the accident. Some
Right,
people have these
right.
horrible things happen to them. People are murdered, some people are abused. There's
Absolutely.
crazy, crazy, horrible things going on. So I'm really interested in what you've learned and what you have to say about that.
I mean, I am just as stunned as the next person when I hear about these horrible deaths or murders and situations of that sort. But I can only tell you what I have received as far as our as far as our death. And what message that I have gotten was that each life is carefully planned with a destiny that is to be fulfilled. And as hard as that sounds, and to me, it's like, how can people have this destiny of such a cruel act or cruel way of passing? But it sounds as though I have to have faith and belief in that. One of the message that he gives me is, your messages will be given to raise the strength of my love and faith in me. I will bring them strength they need if they turn to me. This is if the death of a spouse or loved one. I am the creator of all things, so I must call home the spirit of loved ones. Those who are left behind seek the promise of eternal life. My messages are for their belief in me, their creator and giver of life. I am the beginning of the end, and all that breathes life will perish, and all will find comfort in my hands. But more importantly, each life is carefully planned with a destiny that is to be fulfilled, a completeness of life to bear forth the fruits of that lifetime, to enhance the spirit within before their journey home. So, and then he says, calm their minds with their inner turmoil that never ceases, like the waves of a storm, showing no mercy on a battered ship. So that's part of the grieving process for people. The turmoil, the constant battering of the thoughts. And I don't know how to heal them other than to lift their hearts to the Lord, and that would heal them eventually. It takes time and it takes understanding. As far as how people die this way, I just wish I had the answer, but I don't know. I just don't know. And um, you know, I could only say that we have to pray for ourselves and pray for our loved ones, and hopefully, our angels will protect us. But again, I know that sounds like a pie in the sky attitude, and there are terrible things that happen. And I wish I had the answer, but I honestly don't have one.
That that's great. Honesty is the best way to
Yeah.
go. I do think that it's not all about this life. You know, it's not just this life that we're dealing with. And I think I may have different beliefs than you, but I think that it's very likely that our souls are do kind of reincarnate. Whether you believe that or not, our souls are here, I believe, to learn and expand and have certain experiences, and that we can't really know what all that is about, but trust that the process is for us to grow and learn, and also to expand our hearts and to be love and forgiveness all the time as much as
Oh, yeah.
possible, and bring more light, bring more and more and more light to every moment of our lives. To me, then whether I die at 16 or 62, or I die of quietly in my sleep, or a horrible accident, that that's not really mine to to judge, but that there's something in our experiences that we are supposed to have. And I guess that's where my faith is.
I agree with you totally, 100%. And not only is that experience something for you to have, but perhaps an experience for your loved ones to learn
Yes.
and to grow from as well. And that's part of their destiny and their e- evolution. And just like, your experiences, I often describe it as, because I'm a gemologist, I look at it as a goldsmith who starts out with a bar of platinum. It's just a bar, just a plain bar. And he has to fire it, and he has to mold it, and he has to hammer it, and he has to temper it to form this beautiful piece of jewelry, this beautiful ring. And after all of these terrible things that bar of platinum goes through, at the end, he creates this beautiful piece of jewelry. And I often wonder, if that's what our souls are having to go through, all of these challenges, the fire, the heat, the molding, the flexibility. And at the end, as we evolve, as our souls evolve from all these challenges and all these situations that we have to learn from and grow our faith in, we have this beautiful soul at the end, of all of these situations. So that falls in line with what you're speaking about. And yes, I happen to agree with you. Even though I am, Catholic, I still totally believe that we are not here just one time. We can't possibly learn all that we need to learn in one lifetime. We are definitely here. I think my personal belief is that we have had to reincarnate several times, if not dozens or hundreds of times, I don't
Mhm.
know, to learn and to experience all that we have to experience. So I totally agree with that. And if it is through a car accident, I hope I die in my sleep, but of course we all think that. But if it is through something really treacherous like that, hopefully there's a learning in it somehow, if not for us who've passed, but for our loved ones. So that's how I do see it as well.
Yeah, I've read much of your book, but not all of it. I was wondering, in your journey, did you ask for healing? Did you question why you were going through this illness?
Um, Believe it or not, I never asked for healing. Um, in the book, or in the messages, he tells me that, this illness is starts from your blood and goes into my blood vessels. And I do understand scleroderma, but I do understand why I had the stroke, which stemmed from the heart. And then I was um, prognosed, or I should say diagnosed with Parkinson's just last year. And I don't know, I don't ask for healing because I feel that there's a reason I should be going through this right now. And if I can give hope to others, I'm also functioning every day. I don't look sick. I continue to do, I have a very healthy attitude and positive attitude where I'm so thankful for every day, and I look at the beauty of each day, and I go out there and I seek his love and his beauty in everything I do and see. So I am very content with living whatever days I have in front of me, whatever time he wants to give me, in a very peaceful way and loving way. And I know that when my time comes, it's the perfect time. So it's his perfect time that says, okay, you have written this book, you've gotten it out to people, you had your podcast with Reverend Carol Saunders, and you've done whatever else I want you to do. And now it's time to come home. So I tried to tell that to my cardiologist, who keeps, trying to tell me that I need a pacemaker. He's several times now, he's told me that I need a pacemaker. And I keep saying to him, I understand your situation and I understand your job is to keep me alive. I said, but, I have these other conditions as well. And I know that the Lord is in control, and his time is the perfect time, and I'm going to be here as long as he wants me to. So it doesn't matter if I have this gadget implanted in me or not. It's all under control, and I am totally at peace with it. I am not anxious at all, and I'm not nervous. I don't worry every day that I'm going to pass out or whatever. I just know that it is out of my control, but it's under control. So, his answer to me was, he just looked at me and he was totally stunned. And he said, I have never met anyone who is as much at peace as you are. And
Ah,
I said, that's called faith. That is my faith. And I hope other people will read the book and also have as much faith as I do.
I think that's probably the highest compliment. I'm not sure compliment's the right word, but certainly, certainly to know that you are at peace, and I think that's what we're actually here to learn, is to be at peace with whatever is in front of us or whatever is happening to us. And so there's 2 points I want to make. First of all, when I asked, did you ever ask for healing? Healing comes in a lot of different ways. Okay, so there's this bodily healing, but the healing that you're experiencing is the healing that happens when you move to a place where you have no anxiety, where you are at peace no matter what. That's to me, that's the ultimate healing, to be able to be present with problems, to be with challenges, and not feeling like you even have to overcome them, to just kind of be at peace with that. And we just had Easter weekend. I really always talk about how Jesus always said, "Follow me, follow me." And one of the things he demonstrated in the story, that no matter what happens, that that there that there is kind of a surrendered, no anxiety. This is all happening for a reason, and I am at peace with it. And then he says, or he reminds us to follow him. So to me, the whole Easter story is about looking at how he went through those times of massive tribulations. Everything went wrong. And I'm sure you may have a different interpretation, but personally, I think he showed us how to be in those situations. So you have this diagnosis, you have these health problems, you're facing, probably not the best prognosis, but you're baffling the doctors because you're at peace.
I know. And it's like, they just don't get it, they just can't understand, like he just said to me, you have so much poise and for what you're going through. And, not only do you have heart condition, you have, it's in your fibrosis in your heart, it's fibrosis in your lungs. Now you have Parkinson's disease on top of that, which, means I will probably have dementia in a few years, and it will be difficult for me to walk. I will probably wind up in a wheelchair. And first, I just am not concerned. I am not upset about it. I don't feel any anxiety about it. I know that it's all going to be, in God's hands, just like the time of my creation. I was in his hands then, my heart was in his hands then, and when I finish doing what he wants me to do here, and I believe a lot of it is the book and his messages, and whatever however else I can serve him through helping people, who are less fortunate or more fortunate than me, doesn't matter. However I can serve him is what I will plan to do the rest of the days I'm here. And when I've done what he wants, it's going to be time for me to come home. And that's how I see it. And I have no issue with that. And if it means I'm in a wheelchair, then so be it. I just don't have any fear. I really don't. It's very, I know it sounds kind of silly maybe, but I just don't. I have no fear. I have no anxiety. I am totally at peace. My heartbeat, sometimes I'll look at my watch and it's down to 36 or 38 beats per minute. And I just, accept that and I don't worry about it. So I feel that that is, if I can get all of us to feel that way and to not worry about whatever challenges you're facing in life right now, and just put it in the Lord's hands. He has the strength to carry us. And, one of my messages is about climbing this mountain. And he says, I will climb this mountain with you. And when you get weak, your faith in me will carry you up this mountain to the highest peak. So it's all about your faith in me, again, is going to carry you up to the highest peak. And I believe that our faith is what will get us through this. But just ask him, just put your faith in him. The love that I have for him, I have always had since I was a little girl. I've always had this great love for the Lord. And I think he in some way um, has given me this gift to discern his word, as you asked prior. I can discern his word, where unfortunately a lot of people have a hard time with that. But if you can take the time to really hear him and listen to him, or just spend time with him, I think that's half the battle of getting through our challenges.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about how you'll be in a wheelchair someday, and I think that, like, I recently had a friend pass from cancer, and she was a light in the world. And I think the traditional view would be, oh my gosh, she's gone, a big light went out. And I think there's some truth to that. But I also know that she wanted to be healed fully, but she wasn't. But I always thought that, and I told her this, that wherever she was bringing this light to the people in the waiting room. She was bringing this light to the people who were doing the chemotherapy. She was bringing this light to the people in the grocery store. Whatever she was, you in your wheelchair, if that is your future, you will be bringing your light to who's ever pushing you in your wheelchair, or those who are around you. So we don't know. We can say that's not a good outcome. No one should be in a wheelchair. Or we could say, this is where I am. How can I bring more light to the world? And maybe this is where I'm supposed to be, because of the people who are around me. I can now have a conversation with that they wouldn't be around me if I wasn't in this wheelchair. I don't know if you're following me, but wherever
Yes,
it is
I
that
do.
this is taking you is also going to be your destiny for bringing this light and this calm and this peace and this understanding and this fearlessness, to those who will be in your presence.
I mean, when I tell someone, and I don't go around telling this to a lot of people, if people ask me, I will let them know what I'm dealing with. I've just was diagnosed with another autoimmune, a second autoimmune called Sjogren's syndrome, which is affecting my visual sight, where it gets into the microvascular of my brain and affects the optical lobe of my brain and affects my vision at times. And that, along with the scleroderma and the Parkinson's, and then also the stroke, people think, wow, you've got a lot going on. And I guess when you look at it that way, I do, but I don't feel that way at all. I don't worry about any of it. So as long as I'm doing fine for the day and I'm getting through each day with the Lord's strength and knowing that his love is there for me and having that faith, again, it goes back to faith, hope, and love. And those three things are really what's pushing me through this life at this point, and always has really, but more so now. And I think if people know, maybe if people know, I'm not a person who goes around and is an extrovert and tells people all about my health conditions. I'm just not like that. But if I ever had to do it and explain to people what I was facing, I would be happy to do so, because I'm hoping they would learn to have faith and they would learn to be at peace and they would have comfort. It's all about peace and comfort and harmony with your life. Having that harmony every day, knowing that, my blood is probably causing my vessels to become thickened and restricting blood flow, which affects my organs and my heart and so forth. And there's things going on in my body that doctors don't know, because only 10 people in a million are diagnosed with scleroderma. And that's a very rare disease. Two, I have to travel out of state to get treated for it, because even though I live in North Carolina with Duke and UNC and Wake Forest, very high-end hospitals and academic facilities, they are not equipped to help me with scleroderma. So I have to travel to find a doctor who can help me. But quite honestly, I still get through it, and it's not overwhelming, I should say, is what most people would think. And with Parkinson's, it's a deterioration of my brain, of dopamine, which is a chemical in my brain, which brings on, mobility issues, and why I will someday wind up in a wheelchair, and tremors, and also dementia. So I realize that this may lie in my future, and maybe God will take me home before that. I don't know. But if it does, it does. And I will live in harmony with it. And I will make the best of it. And I will do whatever his plan is for me. So I truly want to get that message through to people and make them understand, or help them to understand, not make, but help them understand that there's always the Lord who will help us. Just have faith in him and believe in him. Belief is so important. And just love him as he loves us, until eternity. So that's really my message in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you, Lois. We are kind of coming up in our hour. As you're talking, I'm reminded of J. Krishnamurti, who's not Christian, but he's known for saying, I don't mind what happens, like he was okay with whatever happens. I don't mind what happens. And that strikes me as kind of where you are in your life. And the idea of not worrying, I think we all know that worry adds nothing. It adds
More
absolutely
anxiety.
nothing.
More
Worry and
anxiety.
anxiety doesn't add anything to our lives, our health, or anything. So to be able to release all of that and just be fully present. So even though your body may be in some sort of degradation or decay or whatever it is, you're very, very alive. You are very, very alive because you're very, very present. And I
Yes.
think with that message for everyone, especially as we're going through, I mean, you talked about division that was happening in the world a while back. We're going through another phase of division, and some of it's contrived, I think, to get us to kind of, be against each other versus with each other. I mean, there's always those forces that are out
Oh,
there.
yes. Yep.
But if we could take this message of love and hope, faith, hope, and love, and also this presence of I don't mind what happens, just allow life to unfold and being fully present and being open. You say your love for God is a big important
A
thing, that
priority. Yes.
priority, that opens the heart in order to listen and also to see the life so differently. I think you brought a lot of lessons to people and a lot of things for them to think about. Do you have any other closing words? We've got a couple minutes. If you have anything else you want to close with.
Um, I would just say to never feel alone, and no matter how depressed you may feel or feel that you are, if you are in darkness, if you live in darkness, if you've given up your hope, um, to look for the light, and that the Lord is, to me, the Lord is the light, and he will give you strength, but to not give up, just as hard as your life has been or is, and how difficult the challenges are, and as weak as you may feel you are, or sick as you may think you are, don't ever live in the darkness. Always look to the light and lift your heart up to God, and he will bless you and he will give you the strength you need. And I truly believe in that, because so many of us do still live in darkness or have given up their hope in the Lord. And this book also talks about that, and to ask people to lift their heart to him, and he will give them strength. And that's probably would be my closing comment, that if that's where you are, please look to the light and look to the Lord.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lois. I've always
Thank
felt
you.
that when you get hit bottom, surrender, and you will not have any idea what miracles will come once you surrender.
I
So,
believe that. I
yeah.
believe that. Yes. And as I said, this may, all of these illnesses, there's a reason I'm going through it, like you said previously. And if it's to help others, then it's well worth it. And my book certainly to me has been a gift of love. Writing these journals has been my gift of love to everyone out there who I hope, are hungry to hear his word, that I'm hoping that they will read it, and that it will provide them with the comfort that it has given me.
Thank you. I'm sure that it will touch the hearts of those who have ears to hear.
Ears to hear, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Lois. And thank you everyone for listening. I really appreciate it. This has been a really interesting hour, and it was definitely a spirit-led hour. And thanks for coming on, Lois, and thank everybody for joining us. And I now close the Spiritual Forum.